Everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air. This is the podcast where we talk to the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. Thank you for being with us. On today's episode, we have JJ Ramberg. She is the founder of Goodpods. JJ, welcome.
Hi, Ever. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. We're excited to have you for a couple different reasons, right? You're a serial entrepreneur. You've been doing some incredible work over the last several years, which we're going to kind of dig into here in this episode. But you are also kind of making a lot of noise here in the podcast scene. The podcast world has been good for you, it sounds like, because of what you're building. And so I wanted to get you on here to talk about that and how you're supporting different podcasters and how you're making it easier for podcast listeners. So this is going to be a fun conversation. So thank you for being on.
Oh, no, thank you. And thank you for all you do in this industry also. I think we're both we share similar goals in what we're doing in podcasting.
I love it. Let's do this. So let's jump right into this. This is one of the questions that I usually like to ask right off the bat. What makes you an outlier?
An outlier. Makes me an outlier is that I'm sort of ping-ponging through different things my entire life, right? I've been very opportunistic about things that have come my way. So we have this idea for Goodpods, which we'll talk about in a second, and we just started it, right? A bunch of years ago, I had this idea that I wanted to go work in Uganda in microfinance, and I just did it. And so there has not been one straight path in my life, right? I worked in journalism at MSNBC and then started companies. And I think just the idea of my zigzags make me an outlier.
And you've been successful at a lot of those zigzags as well, which is obviously good to hear and good to see that you can kind of change career paths or different passions and still do well in these different fields. So congratulations for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. There's a through line between all of them, but it's mostly just stuff I'm really interested in. And then I work really hard at it.
Good. I think you're a perfect candidate to have on our show because we love different personalities. We love different stories, right? We rarely have the executive that has been at the same company for 20 years, right? And then retires with a goal. We don't have those type of guys or gals on our show. We like outliers like you. And so you're home. So let's get to this. You are the co-founder actually of Goodpods. Let's talk about what it is, how it works.
Yep. I'm the co-founder with my brother, Ken, who's a very successful entrepreneur. This is our second company together. But Goodpods is an app where you can follow your friends and influencers to see what podcasts they're listening to. So I can follow you, Ever, and I see your profile. It's picture like Instagram just for podcasts, right? I can follow you, see your profile and think, oh, that's cool. Let me press play and listen to that too. Or let me bookmark this for later. Or you can follow influencers like Kim Kardashian or like that one, or Malcolm Gladwell or Dan Harris, right? To see what they're listening to.
It sounds so easy. And I mean, why hasn't anybody done this at this scale before? Because the podcasts that I listen to, they're usually recommended by other people. The shows that the TV shows, the books that I read, it's always kind of what my friends are reading or they're discovering themselves. This just makes sense in the podcasting world because it's so hard discoverability wise to find good shows. There's so many out there that this just kind of is a no-brainer, it sounds like.
It's so incredibly simple of an idea. I feel the same way. And the reason that Ken and I started this is, well, there are two reasons, but one, as listeners, I kept finding myself going back to the same 5 shows, even though I knew there were hundreds of thousands, now millions, right, of podcasts out there. And I just needed to get to them. And so what better place than your friends? I didn't go to a dinner party. I still don't. Well, now I don't go to dinner parties at all. But when we used to go to dinner parties, I didn't go to one where the question wasn't, what podcast are you listening to? And so we just wanted to take what was already happening on Twitter, right? On Reddit, on Facebook, on your text of what podcast are you listening to and make it simple. So now I just go on Goodpods and see what people are listening to. When I'm ready to go for a run, I'm not spending the whole time actually looking for something to listen to while I'm going running.
And that happens, right? For sure it happens. I spend an hour scrolling and then nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly. And because all you want are recommendations from your friends or people that you trust. This just makes it easy.
So like you, I'm assuming I have a million ideas about different things that I want to work on. And I've worked on a lot of things in the past, and I'm sure, continue to work on a lot of different things in the future. Was this too easy or too simple of an idea that you were like, oh, well, maybe I just can put it on the shelf and then focus on other things? When was that moment that you were like, we're going to do it?
It's funny. So Ken and I have another company together. It's called Goodshop. It's a mission-driven coupon company. And so we already work together every day. And we have had this idea for Goodpods for so long. We always, because he's the one who I would often call and say, what are you listening to? So we've been kind of bouncing the idea back and forth. And then at some point we just said, we personally want this too badly. We've got to do it. And so we started working on it. The other reason we started it too, though, was at the time when we had this idea, I was working for NBC News. I was an anchor of a business show, and I had a podcast, which was a compendium for the show. And I realized that one of the reasons my podcast got so much attention was because I had this big machine behind me of NBC News. And there are all these amazing independent podcasts out there that just don't get seen. They don't rise to the top because they don't have industry connections or, a suitcase full of marketing dollars. And so we wanted to find a way for those shows to surface to the top as well. And that's through word of mouth.
Okay. So you build the app, right? Anything out of the ordinary when you were building that we should focus on?
No, it's pretty straightforward. We came up with the idea. I drew on pieces of paper, which I still have. This is what the app looks like on, very crude wireframes, basically me with some markers, me and some Sharpies of what it'll look like. And then from there, we built it.
So you build it, you put it out to the world. What was the response right away? I mean, I'm assuming you had beta testers. What was that like? And then once you officially launched, what was the reaction of those who were paying attention?
Well, before we built it, before we put it out, anyone to see, I spoke, and I kid you not, ever, to something like 700 people. And these range from the CEOs and founders of some of the top podcast companies or audio companies, media companies in the world, down to, a woman in Topeka, I always use her, who listens to a podcast once a month. I talk to everyone. I also quite like talking to people, so it was fun for me just to say, do you like this idea? What's missing for you in the podcast world? What would you like out of this? And so by the time we launched it, we had a really good idea of what people at least said they were looking for. And then, of course, you launch and you see how people utilize the app. And then we changed things based on the way people use it. And then I kept on talking to people. I still do. And so it's been a pretty typical launch in that way, that our product roadmap now is 100% based on our user feedback.
Which is fantastic. So when did you officially launch? What was the date?
Oh gosh, it was a lot quieter than we had expected because it was in March. So we were planning on launching in March. We had all of these really interesting people on board. So you could follow Malcolm Gladwell, you could follow Gwyneth Paltrow, you could follow Toure, you could go on and on. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah, that's what I was before. For sure. You had this amazing launch. You were ready to go. And then the world's attention was focused on something else. That alone would have taken the wind out of a lot of people's sails, right? But what was your reaction to this?
So our management team, our whole team, had to sit down and do some real soul searching, because we have to bring ourselves back to March, right? Which this was so brand new, it was so scary. Everyone's locked up at home. People we know were getting sick. People were dying. It was sad, and we had to really think, does the world need this right now, right? Is this an appropriate time to be coming out with something like this, given what's going on in our lives and in everyone's life? And so we did some real soul searching. And at the time, we were all not only the founders and team of Goodpods, but we were actually also users, because we had just launched it in a very small beta. And so we got to say, okay, everyone, let's do this to our team. put yourself in the shoes of the user. Is this something that would be helpful to you right now? And so we all kind of talked about it. And the answer was yes, because we realize that it's like the good side of social media, Goodpods, right? So you're connecting around some interesting, positive things. Like, here is some great content that I want to share with you. And we found that amongst our group of beta users, people were really sharing it that way. And even in my own life, I really appreciated and took great comfort about seeing what my best friend was listening to. Or I saw my kids listening to something, and then we would all talk about it at dinner. So we decided to launch very quietly, but we decided to move ahead with it just because we did actually decide that this was a great time to have something like this tool of Goodpods.
Okay, so 6 months, 7 months later, where are you now? And are pandemic, pre-pandemic, whatever, however you want to measure it, are you where you want to be right now?
Well, now it's pretty exciting because now we have seen that some of, when we were sitting in a room thinking we need Goodpods because of blah, 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 right? Now we're showing that actually it's working. So what we saw early on, and now we have seen happen over and over and over again, is that really under the radar shows go viral on Goodpods because one person listens and then another person and then another person. One of my favorites, this happened early on, but I think the show was called You've Got to Calm Down or something like that. And the episode was just white noise. It was like 5 minutes of white noise, but we watched that episode go from person to person to person. Oh, there was another one also about decluttering your closet. A totally under the radar podcast that would not have made it to a top 10 list anywhere else. And one person listened to it and it just went from group to group to group. And it's really cool to see that happen.
So walk us through it, right? So I sign up, I download the app, I sign up. What do I see and how do I interact? You mentioned that I can connect with my friends who are already on there. I'm assuming I can invite them to come on as well, but am I able to search specific topics? Am I able to, it's a directory, I'm assuming as well. Talk to us about the user experience.
Sure. So picture any social media where you come on, you sign up. So I put JJ Ramberg, and then I am suggested people to follow. I can also connect so that I can see who of my friends are already on the app, and then I can follow them if I want to. And then I can also invite people via social media, text, email, however I want to get in touch with them. You can do all of that in the app. So now let's just say I'm on Goodpods, and I've decided to follow Malcolm Gladwell and Ever Gonzalez, right? And a bunch of other people. So then I'm taken to my feed, and my feed is just a list of what everyone I follow is listening to. So when I'm about to go for a run or something now, I'm like, oh, let me just quickly find something cool to listen to. Oh, neat, Ever listened to this, or Lisa listened to this. So that's the feed. I also have just a basic sort of discovery and search where I can go on and I can search for podcasts. I can just type in, Outlier's podcast and find a podcast, or it suggests based on things that I've listened to, here are some neat things that you might want to listen to. It also suggests people that I may want to follow based on what I'm listening to. So JJ, you listen to all this true crime. Oh, you might want to follow Lori. And it also suggests people who are good for different things. So if I love wellness, then hey, you might want to follow LaToya. So we're trying to suggest shows to you, but also more importantly for what we're doing, people. And then you can use the app as your player. So you just press play as you would on any other app. You can bookmark things, you can save them for later, you can create lists. Or if you'd like to keep the player that you're already using, you can use this simply as your sharing platform. So you can add things to your feed from Apple Podcasts, or you can search and just add it to your feed without listening to it.
So I know
I just gave you a whole mouthful, Ever.
Which is great. Yeah. When I signed up, I spent a good hour on it, playing around with it, looking for friends, right? Kind of playing and doing this. And again, it was easy to use. It's good looking too, by the way. So congrats on the way it looks. But just being able to kind of explore different shows as well. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell, right? So like what's he doing, what else is he like, kind of stuff. Again, a good hour on that, and I've been using it ever since as a player as well. So users are having good experiences with this. I know you're getting a lot of press and talking to a lot of cool people. What are the other companies in the industry? I mean, how you're the competition for the most part. What kind of reception are you getting from them, from some of the big boys that might possibly see this as a little bit of a threat or a big threat?
The way I look at this is, again, I go back to who I'm trying to help here, right? I'm trying to help podcasters get more listeners and listeners find new podcasts. So the way we look at this is we are out here to try and help everyone in the podcast industry. And I think what is so amazing, and you're in this, right? You're in the middle of it, Ever, and have been for quite a while. The people in the podcast industry are incredibly helpful to each other. And we're just at the very beginning stages of this world. I think, so many people I've spoken to are simply interested in just growing this. And so I just feel really excited to have gotten so many, I've had so many great conversations and gotten great advice from real pioneers. And, it's still so small so young. Pioneers is not even that old, but in this industry have really helped us and helped us think through what should this product be and how can we reach that goal.
So I know that you mentioned that you want to help listeners, you want to help podcasters kind of grow their base, which is noble and great, and congratulations and all that good stuff. But you, because of your background and everything you've done, I mean, really, why this? Why now? You could be doing just about anything else in the world right now. It's interesting that you chose podcasting, not just podcasting, but in this way as well. Why now?
That's funny. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. It was something that Ken and I were really interested in, right? It's not so different than when we launched our old company. It was just something we were interested in. We felt like we had the skills, the resources and the connections to do it. And so we just did it. I did not actually think that much about it. It seemed really interesting to me, and it felt like we could build something that would be useful to the world. So we just did it.
And that's a good answer. And you have built something, and it keeps growing and growing, which is obviously a testament to what you guys have been able to put together. So again, I feel like I'm congratulating you quite a bit, but I think you deserve it because you've built something kind of cool.
Thank you. We've been working hard. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, we don't care about numbers for the most part, but let's talk about the business model. How are you making money off of this?
So right now we have, we are not making money off of it. It is in the beginning stages, and we made a very clear decision to say, let's go build our audience. Yeah. We have this idea of something that we think will be great and we think people want, but before we think about monetizing it, let's go prove that out. And so we took our team and said, 100% focus on making the best user experience you could possibly do.
Yeah, I was on there trying to figure out, I don't see any ads. I don't see any of this. I don't see any of that. So what's the business model? But so you're building it, which is smart. And then you'll figure out, do you already have some ideas of what you're going to do? Or are you still kind of working on it?
We have lots. We have lots of ideas. It's pretty clear actually what we will do in the future. But again, we have made a really conscious decision to say, let's hold off on that right now, because we want to focus again, 100% on, can we reach that mission, right? Can we make this a perfect experience to get more listeners to podcasters and have listeners discover great things that they're not discovering elsewhere?
Now, when we were doing a little bit of research on you and the company, right? We read obviously some of the articles that have been out there, some of the things that you put out there as well. And talking to you, it sounds like I had an idea. We built it. It was cool. It was great. It's growing. It couldn't have been that easy. Maybe it was, but what have been some of the challenges that you have faced as you're trying to build Goodpods?
Well, gosh, I mean, I think the biggest one was the launch. Right? Yeah. That was, yeah. I told you that story already. I told it rather quickly, but that we hadn't even been around really. We've been around for such a short time from our launch until today. And so that was a pretty big challenge to get in such a young life of a company.
And you overcame it.
Yeah, we did, but we really had to think about it. And so I'm glad we made the decision we did, but it wasn't an easy one to make.
You're a serial entrepreneur, so let's get into some of the other things that you've worked on in the past. But last question with Goodpods. I mean, what is this going to look like in 3 years, 5 years, right? I mean, is this your full-time job? Are you focused on this the most? Or, I mean, I know you're doing some other things, but where does that fall in your priority
100%.
list?
This is 100% my full-time job. I mean, minus 3 children who are here at school at home,
Yeah.
who are like, "Mom, where's my lunch?" But yeah, this is it for me.
And so this is it. So in 3 years, when we have you back on the show, what are we going to be talking about when it comes to Goodpods?
I mean, look, I hope for this to be the #1 discovery platform for podcasts. That's it. Whatever that means, right? So I wish I could show you again our product roadmap. It is quite long because we have so many ideas of what we're going to be building in the next few months, let alone the next few years. But we're just at the beginning of what we think this can be. But
it's funny because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, what's so neat about podcasts and why I love them so much is it's the same reason I became a journalist originally, which is it gives you this opportunity to step into a different world, right? We all live our own lives, and particularly right now, they're rather small. And it gives you a chance to kind of explore the world and step into different worlds. So I want to learn about science one day and history one day, and now I want to laugh, and now I want true crime. And with a pretty low commitment, you get to immerse yourself in something that is different than what you are surrounded by the rest of the day.
I love it. It's funny because podcasting as a whole, it's been around for a little while now. I mean, it's not a baby anymore for the most part, but it still feels like the wild, wild west when it comes to podcast and products and services, right? There are no rules for the most part. We can kind of do whatever we want so far, which is great and which is exciting. The fact that you're focused on this right now and this is your full-time gig right now, you must have obviously confidence that podcasting is not a fad or is not going to go away in a year or 2 or 3. I mean, you kind of have, you're playing the long game, if it sounds like, with this company and with the industry in general, right?
Oh yeah, I don't think podcasting is going anywhere, right? Again, it's not a tiny baby podcasting, but it is still a baby. I think we're still in the beginning stages of this.
That's exciting. What are some of the things that you see that are going to be challenges, maybe not just for your company, but podcasting in general?
Well, I think it's just going to change. I mean, now there's more money into the system. I mean, what I think is going to be interesting for this, is not for us, but for actual podcasters, is that the whole infrastructure around advertising is changing. And so there's actually going to be opportunities for smaller podcasters to actually make money in an efficient way around their shows. And I think that will change things in a good way, because there are a lot of people out there working really hard and spending their own money and putting out great content for free and not getting anything back from it. The other thing that I think is changing, and it already has changed, is the quality of a lot of the shows out there is just going up, right? As people start to understand a little bit more about production and about what people want to listen to, and resources are relatively cheap to even make, you can make a fantastic podcast and not spend that much money. I think it's just going to become more mature.
Yeah, it's funny. As much as I love movies and books, I mean, podcasting takes up a lot of my time, not just work-wise, but I mean, for pleasure, right? With the family, with it. It's just, we can find just about anything, any topic out there. And for the most part, we can find high quality shows for sure.
We listened to one last Christmas vacation. My family and I, we went on this big hiking trip, and at night we would listen to this podcast called Unprecedented. It was really interesting, and it was about Supreme Court cases. And then during the day, Actually, I take that back. I would listen to them. And then during the day on the hike, I would explain it to my kids. And then we would talk about, how would you have decided? And it was, my kids are tweens, right? But it was so fun to get to do that, all sparked by a podcast. And the only reason I listened to it, not I was the only one with a phone.
Huh. It's funny. So we, with Outlier, we work with a lot of the industry giants in podcasting, but really our base are these indie podcasters. And one of the trends that has them a little bit concerned is the big money that's coming in. That's, that are putting a lot of these celebrity shows, they're not liking for the most part, because obviously they have the money to raise them up in the directories and discoverability part of the industry. But then, right, these studios that are putting a lot of money behind any shows, they feel like that's going to overshadow a lot of what they're doing. And, I have mixed feelings. Obviously, that's going to be the case. And there's going to be a lot of great indie podcasters that aren't going to be discovered for the most part. But I think it's okay. I think if they continue to do what they're doing, some of the talent's going to rise and it's going to be discovered, especially with more people like you that are trying to make it the case.
Well, that's what I think, right? I mean, look, I listen to a lot of very popular shows out there that I love, right? That everyone's talking about. And then I also listen to some, as I call them, very under the radar shows that I find through other people. The neat thing about it is they're niches, right? So what we're trying to tap into in Goodpods is these niches. So maybe I don't want to listen to a physics podcast all the time, right? But sometimes I see one on a friend's feed that I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Let me listen to that one there. And so I'm trying to, through Goodpods, get beyond only the ones that everyone's talking about. And hey, tell me the one that my very specific friend who's really into blah, 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 right? What's he talking about?
I love it. Let's move on to some of the other things that you've done in the past as well. One of the things that really stood out was Goodshop. Let's talk about Goodshop, because it has a little bit of a, I don't know, you've donated some resources, some revenue from that. So let's talk about what Goodshop is first and then how it works.
Great. So Goodshop is a mission-driven coupon company. So you get the best coupons for online stores. And then every time you shop, a percentage of what you spend goes back to whatever cause you select. Or it can go back to yourself as well if you want to. You can be money back for you. But we've donated, I think it's almost $14 million to causes around the country through Goodshop.
Well, let's lean in a little bit more to that, because again, we love outliers. We love people that are doing something a little bit different, and you're definitely doing a little bit something different. My wife calls me a filthy capitalist with a hippie heart, right? Because obviously I like to make money. I want to make money, but a lot of the stuff that we do when it comes to our events or different things, I kind of give away tickets because if I know that somebody's having a hard time paying $100 or whatever it is to join our event, I don't care about the $100. I want them to come in and have that experience. You kind of have that vibe too with a lot of the stuff that you're doing, where obviously you are a business person, but it feels like there's more of a good-hearted mission behind everything that you touch for the most part. I mean, am I reading that right? Or is this something that you're constantly doing?
When I was younger, I was really taken by companies that had a double mission, like Ben and Jerry's, or the one that really, really affected me when I was younger was The Body Shop. It was new when I was younger, right? And all the stuff that they were doing. And so I always was interested in having, and just working with companies, and now I've started them, that do have some mission beyond just making money.
And it shows. And it's funny because whatever you believe in, right, whether it's karma or anything else, I think it comes around, and I think it helps the entrepreneur and the company, get good vibes or whatever, because those that are doing it and doing it well continue to grow. And obviously they're helping those around them as well, which is obviously something that's needed, especially now, it feels like.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it certainly makes everyone feel good when they're helping somebody more than just themselves. And so And so in whatever way you do it, right? Whether it's donations, whether it's through a company that you work for or that you started, or volunteer work, it makes you feel good.
Now as we start to wrap this up, let's talk about the time that you spent with NBC News, right? So, I mean, again, you're a journalist of background. Now you're a founder of a couple of different companies. What was that leap like? First, let's talk about your experience there and how long you were doing it, because you were doing it for a little while, for quite a while, and then you jumped into entrepreneurial head first.
I actually kind of ping pong between journalism and business. So my first job was in journalism. Then I went to business school. Then I worked for an internet company, cooking.com, back in those days. Then I went back to journalism. So I worked for CNN. Then I left CNN, started Goodshop. Then I started working at MSNBC. I spent 13 years as a host of a show called Your Business on MSNBC, and it was all about entrepreneurship and growing businesses. It was the one apolitical show on MSNBC and focused 100% on how do you help the small business owner and the entrepreneur out there.
And so obviously you got to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, conversations that I'm sure shaped some of the things that you're doing in business now.
So many. And it ran the gamut from John Foley, who started Peloton, right? Or Jack Dorsey, right? I talked to those people. And then I spoke to lots of people who owned a candy store on Main Street in a small town, right? Or a laundry place, so we spoke to all kinds of business owners and people who were running businesses. It was amazing. I met so many great people, and yes, it absolutely shaped what I'm doing now, because frankly, I learned so much from them.
It's funny, we have on our show 430 plus episodes. We started in late 2013, and so we talk to entrepreneurs all over the place. And every time I think about entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of us do, maybe, we think about the cool, big, sexy business that they're doing, because it's, we glamorize a little bit of entrepreneurs. But a lot of the most interesting shows, the episodes that we had, were when we were talking to entrepreneurs that were running laundromats with a little bit of a twist, or something non-sexy for the most part. And you can have a great life doing different things like that, right? It's not always the flying jets and getting your picture taken. There are a lot of great people making a lot of money, doing a lot of good, doing non-sexy projects.
The vast majority are not these fast-growing venture-backed companies.
That is right.
The vast majority are just people kind of running their companies without all of that glamour behind them.
We've wanted to have you on the show for a little while to talk about Goodpods and a little bit of your history. But one of the things that I was like, you know what, might as well reach out now, was when I saw you on Inc. magazine's Female Founders 100. I mean, what was that like? They give you a call, they email you. What do you apply for it? How does it work?
No, that was really fun. I was very excited to be on that list. No, I just got an email.
Yeah.
I got an email out of nowhere saying, you are being considered here, give us just a little bit of information. And I sent it in, and then I got another email saying, you're still being considered, send in a picture. And so I sent that in, and then I was on the list. So that was really fun.
It's a list of very powerful people on there, right? Obviously you're getting recognition because you're doing some good in the world, and you're building some cool stuff. I mean, it must feel good, this validation that, the obviously when it gets difficult to continue to push forward, people are watching and they're telling you you're doing a great job.
It really was. It is really neat to be in a list with all of those other women. Yeah, it was great. And you're right. Building a company is really fun, and it's really interesting. It's very exciting. It's also, as you know, it can be hard sometimes. And so it does mean a lot to have somebody out there. And usually it's customers, right? That's the thing that means the most, when somebody writes you and says, this is so cool, or thank you for doing this. But to be on that list with all those other women was really cool.
What is it like working with your brother? I mean, sometimes we've had husband, wives, we've had siblings working together. We've had a lot of different groups like this, but working with a brother, I mean, it's your brother. What is that like?
Well, get this, it's not just my brother either. So Ken and I, this is our second company together. We started Goodshop together as well. But for this one, we also recruited my sister
Oh, nice.
and my nephew. So, and
Okay.
then I'm always clear to point out, there are a lot of non-Rambergs working with us as well. It is not just the family. We work really well together. We can finish each other's sentences now. We've been working together so long, Goodshop and now Goodpods, that it's very easy to work with each other. We get along really well. We respect each other a lot. And so it's not to say that every decision we agree with each other, but we have a very good way of communicating when we think differently.
Good for you. I love my family, but I don't think I'd be able to work with them like that on a regular basis. It takes, a special type of person, I think, to be able to do so all day long, every day. And you're doing it, and you're doing it well.
We talk to each other a lot. I remember there was one time, maybe like 5 years ago, where I was like, is a day ever going to go by when I don't talk to Kenny 6 times?
Probably not for a while, for a long time, right?
My
Now let-
honeymoon, as I was in the hospital with my
Oh,
babies.
nice. Nice. Let's end with this question, and we'll let people know where we can find you online as well. But with all of the things that you've done, all of the things that you're still going to do and accomplish in the world, what is the number one reason, the biggest reason for your success?
Hmm. Well, that's a big question ever that I don't know the answer to. The biggest reason for my success, I don't know. I don't know what success is, right? Success is in the eyes of other people who are looking at you, or in your own eyes. And so
You're living a good life. You're doing what you want. And that's success to me, right? I don't care how much you have in the bank. If you're kind of have the freedom to follow your passions, you're having success. So you're to this point because of something that's either in you or you're doing outwardly. If you can think of one thing.
yeah, I think it is maybe appreciating what I've got, and what I've built, and the people around me. I appreciate them. I lean on them. I use them. I hope they all use me. I really, I said it in the beginning, I really like talking and meeting people. I like talking to and meeting people. It was the big joke during quarantine. So anyone walk by, I'm like, hey, I'm JJ, what's your name? Um, and so I think perhaps it is just an exchange of ideas, an exchange of wanting to be helpful to people, and then feeling comfortable asking them if I need help.
That's it. I don't know that I've ever heard that answer before. But it makes sense. Right?
Well, you made me think. I'm glad you asked it.
That's a great answer. Listen, we really appreciate you being on the show. For those that are interested, want to know more about you, want to know more about Goodpods and everything else you're doing, where can we find you online?
Well, what I would hope and ask all of you guys to please go ahead and download Goodpods from the App Store, the Google Play Store. Go follow Ever. What's your username, Ever?
Outlier HQ.
Got it. Go follow Ever. Go follow me. I'm at JJ. And then you can follow me or Goodpods on Twitter. It's actually Goodpods HQ on Twitter, but on Instagram, it's Goodpods. I'm JJ Ramberg on everything. And let us know what you think. We are open to all user feedback.
Yeah, so Outliers, you can go to outlierhq.com. That's outlierhq.com. There you're going to find links to the website, to the app, to social media accounts for JJ and Goodpods. Obviously, she is doing some cool stuff. She has a ton of talent, and she's obviously willing to share it. Reach out to her, tell her how you feel about the app, and maybe tell her, connect with her, like she mentioned, and connect with me on Goodpods. I'm already there.
Can I make one other question to the audience?
Yes, absolutely.
So we are really interested. I told you about our search area on Goodpods, where we suggest people to follow for certain genres, right? So you love true crime, follow Lori. You love wellness, follow Latoy. We are really interested in promoting and surfacing and growing the audiences of these podcast influencers.
Nice.
So if anyone out there, you are listening and you are the person who everyone turns to for podcast on basketball or on gardening, whatever it is, email me. Just do it to hello@Goodpods. It'll get to me, because we are looking for you. And particularly, very selfishly, I am looking for a parent or a caregiver out there who is obsessed with all podcasts that are good for tweens. I am desperate to follow you on Goodpods.
Well, that's good. Well, we're going to put it on the show notes page in the website. So that's good. Yeah. So reach out to goodpods.com. hello@goodpods.com.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
JJ,
Exactly.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for being on. Thank you for talking about what you're doing, what you've done, and obviously what you're going to continue to do here in the podcasting scene. So we really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh, Ever, I so appreciate you inviting me on the show. It was great. Great talking to you.
This was fun. When we get back to hosting our podcast festivals, we're going to need to have you either on our virtual stage or on our physical stage in 2021. We would love to have you there.
I would love nothing more.
Let's do it. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.